The stars bent and twisted as 3,000 warships tore through the fabric of space. The Vulcan Empire had come to Earth. High Commander Torvin stood at the center of his flagship's bridge, his tall gray form casting a long shadow across the polished floor. His four eyes scanned the tactical display with the calm confidence of a hunter who had never known defeat. In his long career, he had conquered 17 worlds. He had watched civilizations crumble at the mere sight of his fleet. Earth would be no different. "Report," he said, his voice deep and cold. "The target world is the third planet from this star," his tactical officer replied. "Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level is primitive. They have achieved basic space travel but nothing beyond their own moon. Their weapons are chemical and nuclear-based. No energy shields. No faster-than-light capability." Torvin allowed himself a thin smile. "Another easy harvest. Send the standard surrender demand. Give them one rotation of their planet to respond." The message was sent. It traveled at the speed of light toward the small blue world that hung in the darkness of space, like a fragile marble dot far from the alien fleet. On the edge of the solar system, a small monitoring station orbited Neptune. Only 3 people worked there. Their job was simple. They watched the sky and reported anything unusual. For 5 years, they had reported nothing. Today was different. Operator Kang Ji-won was the first to see it. She was drinking her morning coffee when her screen filled with red warnings. Her cup fell from her hands and shattered on the floor. She did not notice. Her eyes were fixed on the data streaming across her display. "This is not possible," she whispered. 3,000 objects had appeared at the edge of sensor range. They were moving fast. They were moving toward Earth. She hit the emergency transmission button with a shaking hand. "Earth Command, this is Neptune Station. We have contact. Repeat, we have contact. Unknown objects, numbering in the thousands, approaching from Sector 7. This is not a drill. This is not a drill." The message reached Earth 17 minutes later. It arrived at the orbital station Horizon, humanity's largest military installation in space. Admiral Park Junho was in his office when his communication officer burst through the door without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this immediately." Junho had served in the military for 32 years. He had seen wars. He had seen disasters. He had never seen his communication officer look so pale. He followed her to the command center without a word. The main screen showed the sensor data from Neptune Station. The room was silent. Every officer stared at the display. 3,000 contacts. 3,000 ships. And they were coming. Lieutenant Kim Yuno was the first to speak. She was young, only 28, but she had one of the sharpest minds in the fleet. Her job was to analyze threats and calculate responses. She had spent years preparing for scenarios that everyone hoped would never happen. Based on their current speed and trajectory, they will reach Earth orbit in 72 hours, she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she worked her console. "Sir, their formation suggests military organization. This is not a random event. This is an invasion force." Junho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face showed no fear, only determination. "Get me a line to every government on Earth," he said. "This is no longer about nations. This is about survival." On the surface below, the world was about to change forever. In Seoul, Defense Minister Lee Tae-ho was in a meeting about budget allocations when his phone rang. He listened for 30 seconds. Then he stood up so fast that his chair fell backward. "Cancel everything," he said to his staff. Everything. Within 1 hour, the leaders of every major nation were connected in an emergency conference. Tae-ho spoke first because his country had received the data first. He shared everything. the number of ships, their speed, their direction, the message that had been intercepted. Surrender or be destroyed. There were arguments. There were accusations. There were moments of panic and despair. But as the hours passed, something remarkable happened. The fighting stopped. The disagreements faded. Humanity looked at the stars and saw death coming for them all. And humanity chose to stand together. Admiral Jun-Ho was given command of all Earth forces. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier was placed under his authority. It was the largest military alliance in human history. It was also the most desperate. Lieutenant Yuna worked through the night. She studied every piece of data they had on the alien fleet. She calculated attack angles. She identified possible weaknesses. She built models and ran simulations. The results were not good. In every scenario, Earth lost. But she kept working. Because giving up was not an option. Captain Shin Minji received her orders at the hidden lunar base on the dark side of the moon. This base had been humanity's greatest secret for 20 years. Officially, it did not exist. Unofficially, it was home to 200 of the best pilots in the world and the most advanced fighters ever built. Minji gathered her squadron in the briefing room. 40 pilots. 40 of the bravest men and women she had ever known. She looked at their faces and saw fear. She also saw courage. "You all know why we are here," she said. "Something is coming. Something bigger than anything we have ever faced. The odds are against us. The numbers are against us. But I want you to remember something. We are not fighting for medals. We are not fighting for glory. We are fighting for our families, our friends, every person on that blue planet below us. That is worth fighting for. That is worth dying for." On Earth, people looked up at the night sky. They did not know exactly what was coming, but they could feel it. Parents held their children closer. Friends called friends they had not spoken to in years. Strangers helped strangers. In his flagship, High Commander Torvin waited for Earth's response to his surrender demand. The deadline passed. No response came. He was not surprised. Some species always tried to resist at first. They would learn. They always learned. "Begin the approach," he ordered. Standard conquest formation. 3,000 ships moved as one. The invasion of Earth had begun. And humanity, for better or worse, had chosen to fight. The Vulcan fleet moved through the solar system like a wave of death. They passed Jupiter without slowing. They ignored Mars without a glance. Their target was Earth, and nothing would stand in their way. High Commander Torvin watched the blue planet grow larger on his screen. He had seen many worlds before their fall. Some were beautiful. Some were ugly. This one was neither special nor impressive. Just another rock with water and life. Just another conquest for the Empire. "Any response from the surface?" he asked. "Nothing, Commander. They have gone silent." Torvin nodded. Silence usually meant fear. Fear meant the population was breaking. Soon they would beg for mercy. They always did, but something was wrong. His tactical officer noticed it first. "Commander, I am detecting movement near the planet's moon." "What kind of movement?" "Small craft. 40 of them. They are launching from the dark side." Torvin laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. 40 ships against 3,000. These creatures are either brave or stupid. Probably both. Captain Shin Minji led her squadron out of the lunar base and into open space. Her fighter was small and fast. It had no shields, no armor worth mentioning. What it had was speed and a pilot who refused to die easily. "All units, form up on me," she said through the radio. "Remember your training. Remember why we fight." Behind her, 39 pilots answered with calm voices. They were afraid. Anyone would be afraid. But they flew anyway. The first human weapons fired as the alien fleet passed the orbit of the moon. They were not the fighters. They were something else entirely. For decades, humanity had hidden its true military strength. The world had built secret weapons and secret bases. They had prepared for war with each other. Now those weapons had a new purpose. Missile silos across 6 continents opened at the same moment. Thousands of rockets rose into the sky, carrying nuclear warheads toward the approaching fleet. Orbital platforms that everyone thought were communication satellites revealed hidden railguns. The dark side of the moon, where Minji's base stood, fired massive electromagnetic cannons that had taken 10 years to build. High Commander Torvin's confidence vanished in an instant. Shields up. All ships, raise shields now. The Vulcan energy shields activated across the fleet. They were strong. They were advanced. They had stopped weapons from 100 worlds. The first wave of missiles hit. Bright nuclear fire bloomed in space. The shields held. But the humans were not finished. Sergeant Choi Sunwoo sat in an underground bunker in the mountains of Korea. His job was electronic warfare. He had spent his career studying signals and frequencies. When the alien fleet appeared, he had started studying them too. "I found something," he said to his team. "Their shields use a rotating frequency pattern. It changes every few seconds. But there is a gap, a tiny moment when the pattern resets. If we can hit them at exactly that moment." His commanding officer looked at him. "Can you predict when the gap occurs?" "I think so. Give me 10 minutes. He had 8 in space. Captain Minji's squadron engaged the enemy. They were like insects attacking giants. The alien ships were massive. Each one was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons fired beams of energy that could cut through steel like paper. The first human pilot died 30 seconds into the battle. His name was Yoon Daesun. He was 24 years old. He had a sister back on Earth who was waiting for him to come home. Minji saw his fighter explode. She felt the pain of loss, but she could not stop. "Not now. Break an attack. Target their sensor arrays. Make them blind." The human fighters scattered. They were too small and too fast for the alien targeting systems to track easily. They dove between the massive warships, firing at anything that looked important. High Commander Torvin watched in disbelief. These primitive creatures were not fleeing. They were not surrendering. They were attacking his fleet with weapons that should have been useless, and they were learning. Every minute that passed, the human attacks became more precise. They found weak points in the shields. They discovered which parts of the ships were most vulnerable. They shared information in real time, adjusting their tactics faster than his officers could respond. On Earth, Sergeant Sunwoo finished his calculations. "I have it," he said. "I know when their shields drop." Sending the data now. The information reached Admiral Junho on the Horizon Station. He understood immediately what it meant. "All weapons, synchronize with the frequency data," he ordered. "Fire on my mark." Across the planet and in orbit, human weapons adjusted their timing. They waited for the exact moment, the exact gap in the alien defenses. Mark. The second wave of attacks hit the Vulcan fleet at the precise instant their shields flickered. Ships that had seemed invincible suddenly cracked and broke. Explosions tore through the formation. In 10 minutes, humanity destroyed 50 alien warships. Torvin stared at his screens. 50 ships. He had never lost 50 ships in an entire campaign. These humans had done it in minutes. "Commander, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked. Torvin's 4 eyes narrowed. "Continue the advance. They cannot keep this up forever. They are spending everything they have." He was right. Humanity was burning through weapons and ammunition at an impossible rate. The orbital platforms were running low on railgun rounds. The missile silos were nearly empty, and the fighter squadron that had launched from the moon was down to 28 pilots. But the humans did not stop. They did not slow down. Every time the aliens thought the attack was over, another wave came. Lieutenant Yuna watched the battle from the horizon station. She tracked every shot, every casualty, every small victory. She saw patterns in the alien movements. She saw mistakes they were making. "Admiral," she said, "they are not used to this. Their formation is designed for intimidation, not real combat. If we can break their center, the rest might collapse." Junho nodded. "What do you need?" "Everything we have left. One concentrated strike." It was a gamble. If it failed, Earth would have nothing left. But if it worked, they might survive another day. "Do it," Junho said. Captain Minji received the order. She gathered her remaining pilots for one final push. They were exhausted. They were wounded. They were heroes. "One more run," she said. "Let us show them what humans are made of." 28 fighters dove toward the heart of the alien fleet. Behind them, every remaining missile and railgun round followed. It was beautiful and terrible. It was the greatest attack humanity had ever launched. And when the fire cleared, the center of the Vulcan formation was broken. Torvin looked at the damage reports. Over 400 ships lost or disabled. 400 ships to a species that should have fallen in hours. For the first time in his life, the High Commander felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. 3 days had passed since the aliens arrived. 3 days of fire and death and desperate courage. The Earth was still standing, but the cost had been terrible. The orbital station Horizon had lost half its crew. Admiral Park Junho walked through corridors that had once been full of life. Now they were empty and scarred by battle damage. The walls were blackened. The floors were stained. Every step reminded him of the people who had died under his command. Lieutenant Kim Yuna had not slept in 2 days. Her eyes were red and her hand shook as she worked her console. But she refused to rest. There was too much data to analyze. Too many lives depending on her calculations. "The enemy fleet has pulled back to reorganize," she reported. "We have maybe 12 hours before they attack again." "What is our status?" Junho asked. 60% of our orbital defenses are destroyed. The lunar base is gone. We have used 90% of our missiles. She paused. "Admiral, we are running out of ways to fight." Junho looked at the blue planet on his screen. His home, his world. 8 billion people waiting below, hoping that someone would save them. "Then we find new ways," he said. On the dark side of the moon, Captain Shin Minji stood in the ruins of what had been her base. The attack had come at dawn. Alien bombers had targeted the facility with weapons that melted rock like butter. 2/3 of her pilots died in that attack. Many never even made it to their fighters. She had escaped with 11 pilots. 11 out of 40. They had flown to a backup station on an asteroid. A tiny outpost that was never meant to hold more than 5 people. Her wounds were severe. Burns covered her left arm. A piece of metal had cut deep into her side. The medical officer wanted her to rest. She refused. "We can still fight," she told her pilots. "As long as we can fly, we fight." No one argued with her. They were too tired to argue. But they also knew she was right. Far from the battle, in an underground facility in Korea, engineer Han Do-yoon was working on a miracle. 2 days ago, a Vulcan scout ship had crashed in the ocean. Recovery teams had pulled pieces of it from the water. Those pieces now covered his workroom. Do-hyun was not a soldier. He was a scientist. His specialty was materials. He had spent his career studying metals and alloys. Now he was studying something that was not from Earth. This does not make sense, he muttered to himself. He had been saying that for hours. The alien hull plating was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was strong. It was light. It was almost perfect. Almost he ran test after test. He exposed the material to heat, to cold, to electricity, to radiation. Nothing affected it. It seemed impossible to break. Then he tried microwaves. The result made him jump back from his equipment. The alien metal, which had resisted everything else, cracked like glass. It simply fell apart. That cannot be right, he said. He ran the test again. Same result. Again. Same result. He grabbed his phone and called Admiral Junho directly. Sir, I found something. I found how to break their armor. Within 2 hours, every weapon platform on Earth and in orbit was modified to emit the specific microwave frequency that Do-hyun had discovered. It was a small change, a tiny adjustment, but it would change everything. In another part of the same facility, Dr. Bikana was doing her own research. She was a biologist who specialized in the study of alien life. Before this week, her work had been purely theoretical. Now she had real aliens to study. The Vulcan bodies recovered from the crashed scout ship were strange. They were tall and gray with 4 eyes and 6 fingers. Their muscles were weak. Their bones were thin. Their brains were large but showed signs of decay in certain areas. This does not fit, Hana said to her assistant. They have conquered hundreds of worlds. They should be strong warriors. But their bodies are weak. She dug deeper into the recovered data cores. What she found surprised her. The Vulcan had not always been weak. Thousands of years ago, they had been fierce fighters. But as their empire grew, they stopped fighting their own battles. They used slave races from conquered worlds to do their fighting. Over generations, their warrior instincts faded. Their bodies grew soft. They became managers and commanders, not soldiers. They have forgotten how to fight a real war. They do not know what to do when someone fights back, Hana realized. They have never faced an enemy that refuses to surrender. They are scared. This information reached Admiral Junho just as the enemy fleet began to move again. He smiled for the first time in 3 days. They are not invincible, he told his officers. They are bullies. They only know how to beat those who cannot fight back. We can fight back. We will fight back. The 4th day of the war began with the largest human attack yet. The modified weapons tore through Vulcan armor like it was paper. Ships that had shrugged off nuclear explosions now cracked and broke under microwave. Bombardment. High Commander Torvin watched his fleet die and could not understand why. His technology was superior. His numbers were greater. His empire had never lost. Yet these primitive creatures were killing his ships faster than he could replace them. What are they doing? He demanded. How are they destroying our armor? His scientists had no answer. They had never seen this weakness before. No enemy had ever discovered it, but humans were different. Humans tested everything. Humans questioned everything. Humans learned. Captain Minji led her 11 pilots into battle one more time. They were exhausted. They were hurt. They should have been dead. But they flew anyway. For Earth, she said over the radio. For Earth, her pilots answered. They dove into the alien formation with weapons blazing. They were a tiny force against a massive fleet. But they were not alone. Behind them, every gun and missile and railgun on Earth fired together. By the end of the 4th day, the Vulcan fleet had lost over 1,000 ships. Half their forces were gone. The greatest armada in their history was being torn apart by a species they had considered primitive. Torvin sat in his command chair and felt something he had never felt before. Not doubt this time. Something worse. Fear. On Earth, people watched the night sky and saw explosions like new stars. They did not know what was happening up there. But they hoped. They prayed. They believed and in the ruins of the lunar base, in the broken corridors of the Horizon Station, in underground bunkers and hidden facilities across the planet. Humanity prepared for the next battle. They had paid a terrible price. They had lost friends and family and heroes. They had sacrificed more than anyone should ever have to sacrifice. But they were still standing, still fighting, still human. And they were far from finished. The fifth day of the war began with fire falling from the sky. High Commander Torvin had made a decision. If he could not defeat humanity in space, he would destroy them from above. He ordered a full planetary bombardment. Every ship in his fleet turned its weapons toward Earth. The first shots hit the ocean near Japan. The water boiled and turned to steam. Massive waves crashed against the coast. A second shot struck a mountain range in South America. The peaks vanished in a flash of light. People screamed and ran. Cities that had stood for centuries were suddenly in danger. The aliens were done playing games. They wanted Earth dead. Admiral Park Jin-ho watched the bombardment from the Horizon Station. His face was calm, but his heart was breaking. Every shot that hit his planet killed thousands of his people. He wanted to scream. He wanted to cry. Instead, he worked. "Is the plan ready?" he asked. Lieutenant Kim Yuna nodded. "It has been ready for 48 hours, sir. We were just waiting for them to commit to the bombardment. Then begin Operation Last Light." 2 days earlier, Yuna had proposed something crazy. The alien fleet was too strong for a direct attack. But they were arrogant. They did not watch for threats they considered beneath them. They ignored civilian ships. They ignored debris. They only focused on military targets. What if humanity used that arrogance against them? Across the solar system, in the debris fields and asteroid belts, civilian cargo ships had been gathering. There were over 200 of them. Miners, haulers, transport vessels. None of them were warships. All of them carried something special. Nuclear weapons. The largest humanity had ever built. Commander Ojiho sat in a bunker deep beneath Seoul. He was 73 years old. He had retired from the Navy 15 years ago. When the aliens arrived, he came back. Not to fight in space. To coordinate the most important mission in human history. "All ships, report status," he said into his radio. One by one, 212 voices answered. Some were old. Some were young. Some were scared. All of them were volunteers. "Remember," Jiho said, "you are the hope of our world. What you do today will be remembered forever. I am proud of every single one of you." He did not tell them that most of them would not survive. They already knew. The cargo ships began to move. They drifted toward the alien fleet like leaves in the wind. Slowly, quietly. The Vulcan sensors detected them but classified them as harmless. Civilian vessels. No weapons. No threat. High Commander Torvin was focused on the bombardment. Every shot that hit Earth brought him closer to victory. He did not notice the small ships approaching. Why would he? They were nothing. Captain Shin Minji and her 11 pilots watched from a distance. They had wanted to join the attack. Yuna had told them no. Their job was different. When the cargo ship struck, there would be chaos. And in chaos, there would be opportunity. "Hold position," Minji ordered. "Wait for the signal." On Earth, engineer Han Do-yoon had done something else. His microwave weapon discovery had worked. Now he had something better. Using captured alien technology, he had built a device that could disrupt Vulcan engines. It was small. It fit on a fighter. And it could cripple an enemy ship with a single pulse. He had made 11 of them. One for each of Minji's pilots. When the bombs go off, the enemy will be confused. Yuna explained to Minji over a secure channel. Their formation will break. That is when you strike. Target their largest ships, the ones that carry their commanders. Cut off the head, and the body will die. Minji understood. We will not fail. The cargo ships reached their positions. They surrounded the alien fleet like a net. None of the Vulcan noticed. They were too busy destroying Earth. Commander Jiho took a deep breath. His hand hovered over the button that would start the attack. He thought about his grandchildren. He thought about the world they would grow up in. He thought about what kind of future humanity would have if they lost. May the universe forgive us, he whispered. Then he pressed the button. 200 nuclear weapons exploded at the same moment. The light was blinding. It filled space with fire. It burned hotter than any star. The Vulcan shields, which had blocked so many attacks before, could not handle the assault from every direction at once. Ships vanished. Hull plates melted. Engines died. When the fire cleared, over 300 alien warships were gone. Another 200 were damaged beyond repair. The Vulcan formation, which had been so perfect, was now a scattered mess of burning debris. High Commander Torvin was thrown from his chair by the explosion. He hit the wall hard and felt bones crack. When he stood, his bridge was filled with smoke and screaming officers. What happened? He demanded. What was that? No one could answer. No one understood. How could civilian ships carry so much destruction? How could primitives plan something so complex? Then the fires came. Captain Minji led her squadron through the chaos. The Vulcan ships were confused and blind. Their sensors were overloaded. Their communications were jammed. They could not coordinate. They could not respond. Minji found the largest ship in the fleet. The flagship. Torvin's command vessel. She armed the engine disruptor that Do-hyun had built. For everyone we have lost, she said. Then she fired. The pulse hit the Vulcan flagship. Its engines sputtered and died. The massive ship began to drift, powerless and helpless. Across the battlefield, her pilots did the same. One by one, the largest Vulcan ships lost their engines. They became targets instead of hunters. The remaining human weapons, the last missiles and railguns that Earth had saved, found them easily. By the end of the day, the Vulcan fleet was broken. Of the 3,000 ships that had entered human space, less than 800 remained. And those 800 were scattered, damaged, and terrified. Torvin stood on his crippled bridge and finally understood. These humans were not primitives. They were not weak. They were something else entirely. Something the Vulcan Empire had never faced. Survivors. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had developed weapons and tactics for situations exactly like this. They had learned to use everything they had, including their own bodies, as weapons. They did not know how to give up. They did not know how to lose. On Earth, the bombardment had stopped. The cities that survived began to count their dead. The losses were terrible. Millions had died, but millions more had lived. Admiral Junho received the reports with tears in his eyes. The plan had worked. The enemy was crippled. But the cost had been too high. How many cargo ship volunteers survived? He asked. Yuna checked her data. 47, sir. Out of 212. 47 survivors. 165 heroes who had given everything so that others could live. Junho closed his eyes. Remember their names, he said. Remember all of them. When this is over, we will build monuments. We will tell their stories. They saved our world. Outside, the sun was setting over a planet that had nearly died. But it was still there, still turning, still home to 8 billion people who had learned what they were capable of. The war was not over. But the turning point had passed. And humanity was winning. The 7th day began in silence. High Commander Torvin stood alone on the bridge of his crippled flagship. The screens around him showed nothing but death. His fleet, the pride of the Vulcan Empire, was gone. 3,000 warships had entered this system. Now only one remained. The ship drifted through space on emergency power. The main engines were dead, destroyed by the human pilot who had attacked during the chaos. Life support was failing. Half the crew was dead. The other half was dying. Torvin had never known defeat. In his entire career, spanning 5 decades and 17 conquered worlds, he had never lost a single battle. Now he had lost everything. "Commander," a weak voice called from across the bridge. It was his communications officer, bleeding from a wound in his chest. "The humans are approaching." Torvin looked at the sensor display. A small group of ships was coming toward them. Not the full fleet, just a handful of vessels. They moved slowly, carefully, like hunters surrounding wounded prey. "How many?" Torvin asked. 7 ships, all damaged. One appears to be a medical vessel. 7 ships. The humans had fought a war against 3,000 ships, and they were ending it with 7. It was almost insulting, but it was also terrifying. Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Yoonji led the final approach. She was 34 years old, a career officer who had spent the last 7 days fighting without rest. Her ship was held together with emergency repairs and hope. Her crew was exhausted beyond words, but they had won. "Admiral Junho," she called over the radio, "we have the enemy flagship in sight. It is disabled and drifting, awaiting orders." Back on the Horizon Station, Admiral Park Junho stood at the command center with Lieutenant Kim Yuna at his side. They had been here since the beginning. Now they would see the end. "Scan the ship," Junho ordered. "Are there survivors?" Yoonji ran the scan. Approximately 200 life signs, down from an estimated crew of 3,000. Their weapons are offline. They pose no threat. Yuna looked at her admiral. "Sir, we should finish them. If that ship escapes, they could return with more forces." Junho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the millions who had died. He thought about the cities that had burned. He thought about the cargo ship volunteers who had sacrificed themselves. Part of him wanted revenge. Part of him wanted to destroy the last alien ship and celebrate victory. But another part of him thought further ahead. "No," he said finally. "Let them go." Yuna stared at him. "Sir, let them go," Junho repeated. "Let them limp back to their empire. Let them tell their leaders what happened here. Let every species in the galaxy hear the story of what Earth did to the greatest armada the Vulcan ever sent." He paused. "Fear is a weapon too. And right now, we need the universe to fear us." On the crippled flagship, Torvin watched the human ships stop their approach. They held position just outside weapons range. They were waiting. Then a message came through. A voice speaking in Torvin's own language, translated by some human machine. "This is Admiral Park Junho of the United Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion has failed. We are allowing you to leave. Return to your empire. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them what happens when someone comes to our world with violence in their hearts. And tell them this: Earth is not to be touched. Ever again." The message ended. The human ships began to pull back. Torvin did not understand. By every rule of war he knew, the humans should have destroyed him. He was helpless. He was defeated. Showing mercy to a defeated enemy was weakness. But as he watched the humans retreat, he realized something. This was not mercy. This was a message. A warning written in fire and death. They wanted him to survive. They wanted him to carry the story home. They wanted the universe to know. Navigation, Torvin said quietly. Plot a course for home. Use whatever power we have left. His officer worked the controls with shaking hands. It will take us months to reach Vulcan space. Maybe years. Then we have time, Torvin said. Time to think about what we will say. He moved to the recording station. His body ached. His wounds throbbed. But he had one duty left. He pressed the button and began to speak. This message is for the Vulcan High Council. For every commander in the fleet. For every citizen of the Empire. I am High Commander Torvin. I led 3,000 ships to the world called Earth. I expected an easy conquest. I was wrong. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The humans are not like the species we have conquered before. They do not surrender. They do not break. When we attacked them, they did not run. They fought back with weapons we did not expect. They learned our weaknesses faster than any enemy we have ever faced. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation to save their world. His voice grew heavy with something that might have been respect. We came with an armada. I leave alone. 3,000 ships, reduced to one. The greatest military force in Vulcan history, destroyed by a species we considered primitive. This was not bad luck. This was not a mistake. This is what they are. He looked at the blue planet growing smaller on his screen. Do not send another fleet. Do not attempt another invasion. Mark this system forbiddance. Erase it from our star charts. Earth is death. The humans of death. Let them have their world. We have lost enough. The recording ended. Torvin slumped in his chair. He was done. Back on Earth, the sun was rising over a wounded but living planet. In Seoul, Commander Ojiho emerged from his bunker and felt the morning air on his face. In the asteroid base, Captain Shin Minji and her surviving pilots watched the last alien ship limp away into the darkness. On the Horizon Station, Lieutenant Yuna finally allowed herself to rest. Admiral Junho stood at a window looking down at Earth. The planet was scarred. Cities had burned. Millions had died. The world would need years, maybe decades, to recover. But they had survived. A hand touched his shoulder. It was Dr. Beek Hana, who had come up from the surface to see the end. What happens now? She asked. Junho thought about the question. What did happen now? The war was over, but nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had learned that they were not alone in the universe. They had learned that there were species out there who would try to destroy them. They had also learned something about themselves. Now we rebuild, Junho said. We make ourselves stronger. We prepare for the day when someone else comes. Because they will come. Maybe not the Vulcan. Maybe someone else. But they will come. He turned to face her. And when they do, we will be ready. Far away, the last Vulcan ship disappeared into the darkness between stars. It carried a message of warning, a story of defeat, a lesson that the universe would remember for 1,000 years. Earth was not to be touched. Humanity was not to be challenged. The small blue world at the edge of an ordinary galaxy had proven something that no one had expected. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were human. And that was enough.